Okay, want to talk about personal agency a little bit today, and I want to pin down the nature of the challenges to my own personal independence precisely in order to see how much these concerns I have scale for others. So I have to state how I am different from the majority of people and see what ethical problems arise as I live out of my own personal identity, regardless of group affiliations. Because of my introversion and other personality characteristics, I tend to experience the world in my own head and then often communicate it to others, including today's online with global reach access. Important components of my world experience include music, that's listening, composition, and performance, and other cultural topics, including hard and sciences and social sciences. The representation of life in some games, especially like chess, can be important. I also have less ability than most males, especially physically, to perform in a manner that is normally expected of men. I tend to be interested in social interactions only when there is the possibility of upward affiliation that I consider the person is not only able to provide me interesting feedback, but worthy of some absolute measure. I tend not to bond to people based on shared needs as in a tribe or family the way most people have to. This sometimes, mainly in younger adulthood, affected my willingness to consider intimate relationships capable of supporting families. That in my adult life has turned out to be a good thing. Sometimes I'm not as vulnerable to polarized tribal fealty. All this creates a moral imbalance. I can create interesting content and ideas and connect the dots, and sometimes in the workplace or society as a whole uncover potentially catastrophic risks that others are likely to miss. That's actually happened. But in more immediate situations, I tend to leave the risk-taking and sometimes the actual street fighting and activism to others. When I was a youngster, I developed an awkwardness that is generally called dyspraxia today. I was probably slightly autistic with Asperger's syndrome also. There's no obvious medical explanation on the surface, and it was not considered a disability in those days, and I don't think it is now. But I was not transgender or non-binary. The woke solution to bond with others with similar issues and demand some sort of politicized solution from others for relief from intersectionalized depression is something I've rejected. I am white, obviously, however, and even though I was teased and had issues and some serious setbacks, in the end my parents came through for me. So as an individual since then I could be considered privileged, but not by the usual reasoning of critical theory. At one point I was diagnosed as having a schizoid personality, but that would be a behavioral adaptation of mine following a little bit of Asperger's to outflank others by interacting with them in field from a distance, rather than by sharing emotional warmth, especially in group settings. Most pressures early in my life were toward performing like a man, marrying and having children, providing lineage to my parents since I was an only child as best I could after dealing with certain contradictions. Later in life, I would have to become somewhat a public person, so the pressures on me would be to surrender my own efforts and join in some sort of demanded allyship with the oppressed, with intersectionality as an ideology. In all scenarios, in other words, bend the knee. I find myself very reluctant to be someone else's mouthpiece, and I don't experience oppression as part of any visible group, just on how I fit in or don't fit in socially as an individual. I do enjoy contemplating a world of meritocracy, so there is a danger that if there are too many people around like me, we can slide toward personalized fascism. As will be apparent in the succeeding videos, I see social justice achieved as individuals paying their dues for privileges given to them when having their own difficulties and social credit as something to strive. Not simply making remedies for groups. Social credit scores could conceivably make sense, actually, as dreadful as they sound, because China has them. But the radical right and left both demand that you join their teams and fight for their power structures. With the left now, as the Overton window moves, even be willing to fight for reparative group remedies. So it's I may be privileged as an individual, and I may have, and the left's solutions to join their fight against oppressed groups and claim I'm oppressed actually would relieve me of responsibility for my own shortcomings.